I'm milling about with Guy Moshe, who is the writer, director of the film LX 2048. Hi, Guy, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So tell us what this backdrop is behind me. It's like my favorite scene in the movie.
um, I was basically trying to imagine the near future, which is like 20, what the world would look like 20, 30 years from now. And in my mind, one of the things I don't really love about the sci-fi genre is that I always feel every time Hollywood makes a movie that is 30 years into the future, we have spaceships and flying cars and all that kind of stuff, where when I look at our reality and I go back in time 25 years, I'm like, we haven't really jumped so far in that time span. And one of the things that I kept thinking about is because of our increasing dependency on the digital world and things moving into the digital realm. Of course, that was before Corona came about to make me smarter than I thought I was. I imagine the world where actually some things will go into some version of decay because there's going to be less usage of the physical world. I thought about global warming becoming such an issue, which in this film, of course, satirically, the idea is that you cannot even get out of the house during daytime. And this scene behind you is our protagonist is kind of a man after our own taste, is holding on to this kind of old world that we're part of right now, and insisting on going to work during daytime and driving to his office. But in order to do that without suffering the consequences, he has to don a hazmat suit. And the one thing we're seeing as a trait for the future is this hyperloop train that is, again, a real thing that is being developed right now that I do imagine will exist in 20, 30 years from now.
It's a very, very scary premise, Guy, I have to tell you, because it is so true. I mean, the fact that we are in our homes, have been in our homes for the last couple of months, all the offices are empty. You know, the lead character played by James Darcy walks into an empty office, and it's happening today. So this was like a premonition of yours.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I wrote the first draft of the script in 2016, so it's been 4 years ago. But I think, the funny part of it is, of course, I didn't expect this to become a reality within 4 years, naturally, with the way I was setting the movie. But I did have a feeling, this is, I think, where the connectivity with this technology thing that I was watching around me, that we're heading into a universe where we live in isolation from one another, much more than in the past. I feel like there's so many things that we've gotten accustomed to do through this through these devices, through our phones, through now we're talking on Zoom or whatever, that I could only imagine when VR kind of fulfills its full potential. And I've as a filmmaker, I've gotten a glimpse of those technologies of virtual reality and augmented reality at their very onset. I was lucky enough, I was invited to USC to see some of the kind of the technologies while they were in development, and I was blown away by it. So a part of me in creating this film wasn't necessarily thinking it's good or bad, just was imagining that this has to at some point replace the way we communicate with one another right now. And what's going to happen then? What's going to happen when you can sit in your own home and you can travel to your desired destination with no mosquitoes and no
I would love that. That's so me, to go somewhere where there are no
and
mosquitoes.
maybe you can tailor the crowd to your satisfaction and the level of the noise and all that kind of stuff. So then why would you even bother going there anymore and stuff like that? So all these things started coming to my head. And I think the film, there's a lot of ideas in the film, but they all connect to one central theme, which is, what does it really mean to be human in the modern world? I think that was what I was going for.
Well, tell me about casting James Darcy in the film. What was it about him that you felt he connected to Adam Berg?
It was very interesting. I don't know if you know the story, but me and James were discussing a different project, a bigger film that I was going to do, a completely different genre, completely different role. And I cast James for that other movie as a very big supporting role. There was another lead actor, and he was going to play opposite him. And then that film, for a variety of reasons, got delayed. And I had
What
an
was the
opportunity.
film?
It was called The Last Draw of Jack of Hearts, but we never, we were actually in the midst of prep, but then decided to kind of postpone it for a lot of the adventures that happen in the independent world sometimes. And I ended up doing the film. I had an opportunity to do this film first, and having met James online, and obviously I was familiar enough with his work because I've cast him already in something. And when I was thinking about doing this film, I thought to myself, like, this guy is like would be so perfect for it. There's something about James that I think he has. He has a great humility about himself as a human being, And I like to talk about actors, not just about their performance prowess or like their ability to kind of do a character, but there's always the starting point of a real person. And James had a lot of these kind of beautiful qualities of somebody who's got enough self-deprecating humor and like taking life with a bit of a grain of salt. Highly intelligent person, highly informed and interested in the world around him and all that kind of stuff. So when we were talking about all those things, I had an inkling, and it's funny because he acknowledged it later that he would care about a lot of those same topics that the movie is trying to raise, and at least identify, not with the kind of full blown character, but at least with what the character seems to care about in terms of the things that kind of bother the character as he goes through this existence where everybody around him seems to almost having forgotten how to live.
I'm sorry, there is a scene that I felt embarrassed for him when you were shooting it, where he's having sex with the avatar. So
yeah.
Talk about, was he?
About filming it? He was very, very, very kind of troubled by that scene. It was one of those things we were, he knew this was going to be a big part of the film, of course, but I think we shot it actually on the last day of filming, or like close to it or something. It was one of the final days of shoot. But of course, even in the way that I designed the doll and all that stuff, there was a lot of humor thrown into this representation, so to speak. So it was never meant to be entirely serious, even in the way that it's being shown to us. I just think for me it was very important to go there, because I feel part of what the film is talking about in terms of our identity, if you look at James's journey as a character, I like to think about, we have like 4 different images, each and every one of us, right? We have the image of the person that we'd like to be, that we're trying to project onto the world. We have the image of ourselves that is true, that we sometimes are not even aware of who we really are. That maybe we can search our entire life for that person. Then there is the way people see us from the outside. In his case, let's say his wife or whatever, the way she views him is yet another image of him. And then finally, there is the potential of the best version of yourself that you could be, that in this film also, he goes through these stations where he's going through them. And one of the things about being the best version of yourself that you can be, for me, is being also brave and sincere about your own weaknesses, of accepting yourself in kind of a full way. And when you think about the internet, the internet is 70% traffic is sex related. I mean, it's like, this is almost like a scientific fact. And yet nobody talks about it. It's kind of this hidden thing. And when you think about the magnitude of the numbers that need to mean in terms of the world we live in, it means that each and every one of us, in his own mind, in his own kind of personal quarters, have a side to themselves that is closed in a box, that we're not talking about with anyone, we're not sharing with anyone or whatever. So I really wanted to kind of present that side of Adam in this exploration of the character within this kind of satirical futuristic context. But in actuality, it wouldn't be different than if his wife was catching him, like, you know, watching porn or something like that. You know what I mean? Which
Sure.
again is not necessarily so outrageous. So a lot of creating this universe was just kind of amping up the dial on things that exist in reality, I think.
Yeah. Are there any practical gadgets? I know you have a really cool scene where he's shaving with a laser. And so
That would definitely be something I would love to have, you know. I'm sure that could be a hit if we actually released it to the market. But yeah, I mean, there was some of that, and there were things on the other side of it where I kind of insisted on staying. You know, I didn't want to push whatever, even with the cars, right? Like I didn't feel like he should be driving a futuristic car because, quite frankly, I remember having traveled to New Zealand like maybe 20 years ago, and because that country is so spread out and it's so kind of like farmlands and all that stuff, there were a lot of people driving old cars because it didn't really matter to them. Like that wasn't a thing right now that necessitated like having the newest thing on the market. Like if you live in Los Angeles or something like that. So the world that we're describing is a world where nobody goes outside anymore. For me, it didn't make sense that the cars are going to be a big deal anymore. Like who cares, you know? And it's kind of like what's happening in the pandemic right now. You know, like nobody's driving anywhere, nobody's like going outside. So you suddenly you don't want to buy clothes because it doesn't really matter. Like you have nowhere to wear them to. That was kind of the logic that I was going with some of those things, if that makes sense.
yes, absolutely. And why did you choose to shoot this in Lithuania of all places?
So the thing was that we had another project that was set up there. Some of the finance came from there, and so obviously that was the main reason. But what happened was, oddly enough, because I was already there, because we were discussing this other project and there were some financiers, and we didn't use a service company there in the traditional sense. The producers that work with us in Lithuania were very much partners in making the film, and a big reason why the film happened. But when I was there, I was amazed. I mean, Lithuania sounds like such a kind of otherworldly place, and a lot of people confuse it with Eastern Europe, where in fact it's much more close to Scandinavia in terms of the aesthetic. And if you've been to Scandinavia, you'd know that that whole part of the world has a thing with like a modern type of design. So Lithuania actually had a lot of these places, a lot of these kind of interior spaces and streets that felt very much like you know, realistically futuristic, in the sense that because the country is also not so new, not so old. Sorry, I'm not talking about the old town part of it, but like where the city of Vilnius, for instance, is kind of like started building the more modern side of it. It all happened after the fall of communism. So in essence, you have these streets that kind of echo the sentiment of what it would be like if somebody would build those buildings here now in, say, in Los Angeles, and then you'd walk into that street in 20, 30 years from now. It made a lot of sense, you know, architecture, from an architecture standpoint. And of course, I knew a lot of the exterior shots I'll be able to also do in LA. So it was a good kind of.
So let's say, Guy, that you could clone yourself, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And what would the attributes be that you would change? Because that's the one thing that I loved about this clone,
I
was
think
that,
that my favorite thing about the clone is like you can't really, you can't so like phase him out. Like he doesn't go, you know, either too mellow or too upset. You know what I mean? I think each, for me personally, that would be a blessing if I could be so relaxed about everything. You know what I mean? I would definitely take that part of it. You know.
you would be a mellower
A
you.
mellower version of myself. I think my life would be easier lived, you know. But maybe as a filmmaker, I think it comes with a package. You know, we're all um, very passionate about certain things, and it comes with the, it gets us to the tipping point sometimes. You know what I mean? So,
Well, if I could get inside your head, oh my gosh, what an imagination.
thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I'm also, as a film lover, or like as a movie goer, I think for me, the films I've always loved are the ones that are thought provoking, that make you a little bit. It doesn't matter what genre they are. It doesn't matter. I like all films and all genres, and can enjoy a wide variety of kind of interpretations of stories and stuff. But like, I need something in the film to sort of like poke me a little bit, to just make me feel like I can use my brain after that. And sometimes it's about a film staying with you for a couple of days after you've watched it, which to me has always been my favorite types of movies. So that's the kind of filmmaker I think I'm continuing to be, in a sense that every time I take on a genre, I'm trying to like see if I can move it a little bit, like an inch, like in a certain direction that will, hopefully will feel a little bit fresh when you're going through the experience. So.
Well, you certainly accomplished that with LX 2048. I'm still thinking about it as I'm speaking to you. So great, fun film. What's your next project?
I'm actually, I have 2 films I'm attached to direct that I'm kind of equally, and both of which I've written as well, that I'm equally excited about. I don't know which one of them will happen first, but one is in the psychological thriller horror genre this time, even though it's hopefully got more substance than your typical foray into that kind of playing field. And another is based on a true story of a historical event that happened in my home country of Israel. I was born and raised in Israel, and something that's very close to my heart, which is more of an espionage kind of story. So one of those will be my next film for sure.
Cool. And do you have a cast in mind, or you haven't gotten to that point yet?
No, I haven't gotten to that point yet. I mean, we're just in the, I'm actually in the financing part, which is seemingly, knock on wood, going well. And when that, when that becomes a bit clearer, I think we'll decide who we're going after. But it's always, to me, every film, I imagine the character in a certain abstract way. It's very difficult to explain. But when I write, I don't necessarily think about this actor or that actor. I just think about the character, and then I suddenly start looking at who's available and who's out there. And it's just like, some people just feel very right for this, and some people could be my favorite actors. They just don't belong in that kind of impressionistic environment, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thanks again for joining me, Guy, and let everybody know how they can see this film, because it's certainly worth.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, so it's coming in the US. It's coming out on Friday, and it's going to be available basically on all the major VOD platforms. Amazon, iTunes. All the usual suspects. And what the funny thing about that too, speaking of Corona, because we were supposed to have a theatrical release, and like we're in a place where people ask me, well, where can I see it? I'm like, you can see it where you can see any movie right now, which is exactly the same place. So it's all in all of the VOD different platforms. The Vudu. I think there's a list of 30 of those that they're gonna have the film available there. So hopefully people will check it out.
Absolutely. Thanks again, and stay safe.
You too. Thank you so much.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Always news. Always refreshing. Always candid. Always milling about. Robin Milling delivers what celebrities are saying to you.